To repay him for saving my life, I married Grant Coleman, a decorated war hero left unable to have children by a combat injury. On our wedding night, this man, so decisive on the battlefield, pushed a bank book toward me, unable to meet my eyes. "Leah," he said, full of guilt, "this is everything I have. The pin is your birthday. Take it. Later on, find a good man and get married. I'm sorry to have wronged you like this." Everyone in the base housing complex laughed at me, saying I was doomed to be a young widow while my husband was still alive. Even he felt he had failed me. But only I knew the truth. He wasn't permanently sterile, his system was just severely damaged. And I possessed an incredibly rare, hyper-fertile constitution, along with a pocket dimension that held a healing spring. I looked at his handsome but lonely profile, locked the door, and pushed him onto the bed. "There are many ways to repay a hero," I whispered. I leaned close to his ear, my breath warm. "I choose the most direct one." Grant's body went rigid as a stone. He probably never imagined that his seemingly meek and obedient little bride could be so bold. In the darkness, I could feel his breathing turn ragged and his heart pound like a drum. "Leah, you don't do this." His voice was hoarse with restraint. "I can't give you what you want. Don't waste your time on a broken man like me." "Broken?" I let out a soft laugh, my fingers tracing a path down his firm chest. How could a hero who took on 10 men at once on the battlefield be broken? Everywhere my fingertips touched, his muscles tensed instantly. I have a physical defect." He forced out the words, as if tearing open his deepest, most shameful wound. "I know," I said softly. "I heard what the doctors said. All of it. But I don't believe them. Grant, I believe in you." My words seemed to strike the softest part of his heart. He fell silent, a long, deep silence. Just as I thought he was about to push me away again, a pair of scorching hands seized my waist. In one swift motion, he flipped us over, completely reversing our positions. He loomed over me, his eyes churning with a complex storm of emotions I couldn't decipher: struggle, desire, and a hint of desperate madness. "Leah, you asked for this." His voice was low, as if he'd made some final, irreversible decision. "Don't regret it later." I met his gaze and shook my head firmly. No regrets. It was a long night. He was like an untamed beast, driven by a desperate frenzy, as if trying to unleash years of pent-up frustration and despair. And I chose to embrace every part of him. Because I knew that from this day forward, this man was mine. When I woke up the next morning, the space beside me was already empty. A note sat on the nightstand, the handwriting strong and firm: "Breakfast is in the pot. I'm out for morning drills." I sat up, rubbing my sore waist, a sweet feeling blooming in my heart. This man, so quick to say no, but his body was certainly honest. After a quick wash, I went to the kitchen. A pot of white porridge and some dumplings were keeping warm, with a perfect golden fried egg sitting next to them. Just as I was eating, the door opened, and my mother-in-law, Susan, walked in carrying a bowl of millet porridge. She paused when she saw me, her face a mixture of pity and awkwardness. "Leah, you're up. Last night. Grant, he didn't give you a hard time, did he?" she asked tentatively. I knew what she meant. I shook my head and smiled. "Mom, Grant. He's very good to me." Susan sighed, placing the millet porridge on the table. "Here, drink this. It'll help you recover. I know you've been wronged. Our Grant is a good man in every way, but this body of his, sigh." She paused, taking my hand, her voice earnest. "Leah, dear, I'm not an unreasonable person. You're still young. If one day you feel you can't go on and want to leave, I won't blame you. Take this bank book. Consider it compensation from me." She pulled the very same bank book Grant had given me last night from her pocket. A warmth spread through my chest as I pushed it back to her. "Mom, I married Grant because I wanted to. He saved my life. Even if he stays like this forever, I'll stand by him. I looked her in the eyes and said seriously, besides, I believe he's going to get better. My words stunned Susan. Her eyes reddened as she patted the back of my hand. Good girl, you're such a good girl. It's our family that has wronged you. After she left, I closed the door and, with a thought, entered my secret space. It was a small valley with a spring at its center, bubbling with clear water. This spring was my ace in the hole. Years ago, when I fell into the river and was on the brink of death, it was this space, hidden within a family heirloom jade pendant, that saved me. And the person who pulled me from the icy water was Grant, who happened to be passing by. He had saved me twice. So when I heard that his injury had supposedly left him sterile, that he was failing at every blind date, and had even been publicly humiliated when his fiancée broke off their engagement, I didn't hesitate. I asked a matchmaker to propose on my behalf. I wanted to repay my debt to him, but more than that, I wanted to heal him. I filled a thermos with the spring water and mixed it into our water dispenser. From today on, I would be in charge of the food and drink for Grant and his family. I was sure that before long, everything in this house would change completely. I grabbed a basket to go grocery shopping, and as soon as I opened the door, I ran into a few of the army wives who were gossiping in the hallway. The one leading the group was Brenda Jones, who lived across the hall. With her sharp, upturned eyes and thin lips, she had a perpetually sour look. Seeing me, her voice immediately shot up an octave. Well, if it isn't Captain Coleman's new little bride? What's this? A short night of newlywed bliss keeping you in bed so late? The other wives around her snickered. Brenda, you shouldn't say the quiet part out loud. They're newlyweds, what do you know? Exactly, but... I heard about the captain's condition. TSK. This new bride might be signing up for a lifetime of being a widow with a living husband. She's so young, what's she thinking? That he's a hero? You can't eat heroism for dinner, and you sure can't use it in the bedroom. The comments got nastier with each sentence, practically insults to my face. My expression turned cold, and I stopped in my tracks. I knew that if I just took it today, they would only get worse in the future. Ladies, what are we all chatting about? I asked, a faint smile on my lips, but my eyes swept over them with icy contempt. My stare made Brenda choke on her words for a second, but she quickly recovered with a sneer. Nothing, just checking in on a neighbor. Leah, dear, you're so young and pretty. It's such a waste for you to marry Captain Coleman. If you get lonely, you be sure to tell us, now. Don't go getting any wild ideas and fooling around outside. That would bring great shame on the captain. The insinuation in her words was utterly venomous. The smile on my face deepened. Thank you for your concern, Mrs. Jones. But my husband is a hero, not a cripple. He's out there bleeding to protect our country. If we back here can't be grateful, the least we can do is not stab him in the back. I paused, my gaze fixed on Brenda. I heard your husband, SGT. Jones, came in dead last in the last training exercise. The CO even chewed him out in front of everyone. Instead of worrying about my family, maybe you should spend more time worrying about him, so he doesn't embarrass himself again and ruin his chances for promotion. You. Brenda's face instantly turned beet red. What nonsense are you spouting? You know perfectly well whether I'm talking nonsense or not, I said coldly, walking past her with my basket. And another thing, I know better than anyone whether my husband is capable or not. I won't need any of you worrying about it for me. Without a backward glance, I walked down the stairs. Behind me, I could hear Brenda's furious sputtering and the awkward silence of the other wives. I knew this was just the beginning. To make it in this base housing complex, you couldn't just be meek. That evening, Grant came home looking somber. He took off his uniform jacket and sat on the sofa without a word. I poured him a glass of water, spiked with my special spring water, and handed it to him. What's wrong? A rough day at work? He took the glass and downed it in one go. The warm liquid seemed to soothe his frayed nerves. SGT. Jones publicly challenged me on the training field today, he said grimly. SGT. Jones? Brenda's husband? I connected the dots immediately. Grant nodded. Everything he said was a dig at me. At my condition. Called me a useless man. A surge of anger rose in me. That Brenda was such a gossip. Her own husband was incompetent, so she went around spreading rumors. So what did you do? I asked, sitting beside him. A cold smirk touched Grant's lips. I challenged him to a 5-kilometer run in full gear. I finished a full lap ahead of him. I burst out laughing. That was my man. Simple, direct, and just crushing the competition with pure ability. Well done. I praised him sincerely. He glanced at me, a flicker of warmth in his eyes. But it's a reminder. Leah, they're right. Being with me, you really are getting the short end of the stick. His mood sank again. I took his large, calloused hand in mine and looked at him seriously. Grant, I don't feel that way. And I told you, I believe you're going to get better. I brought a steaming bowl of soup to him, also enhanced with the spring water. Drink this. I made it specially for you. I guarantee it'll put the fire back in you. He looked at me, his eyes swirling with emotion. After a moment, he let out a low picked up the bowl, and drank the entire thing. After finishing the soup, he felt a surge of strength, the fatigue and frustration of the past few days melting away. He looked at me, astonished. This soup. What's your recipe? I gave him a mysterious smile. A secret family recipe. Non-transferable. All you need to know is that from now on, you have to eat every last bite of what I cook. He gave me a long, searching look but didn't press further. The trust and reliance in his eyes, however, had deepened. That night, he pulled me into his arms again. But unlike the frenzy of our wedding night, his movements this time were full of tenderness and care. I could feel his frozen heart slowly beginning to melt. In the days that followed, Brenda was relentless. She didn't dare confront me directly, so she started a campaign of petty attacks. One day, she complained the smell of my cooking was too strong and was distracting her kids from their studies. The next, she claimed my laundry was dripping water onto her windowsill. It was all trivial nonsense, but endlessly annoying. I ignored most of it, but when necessary, I fought fire with fire. She said my food was too fragrant. I'd deliberately stew a pot of the most aromatic meat, making her kids cry for a taste. She said my clothes dripped water. I'd accidentally spill a basin of vegetable washing water just as she was hanging out her blankets. After a few skirmishes, Brenda never gained an inch and only managed to infuriate herself. The other wives in the complex weren't stupid. They saw what was happening and drew their own conclusions. Gradually, fewer and fewer people sided with Brenda. In fact, many started greeting me, complimenting my cooking and skills. One day, my mother-in-law, Susan, came home beaming and grabbed my hand as soon as she walked in. Leah, you are our family's lucky charm. What is it, Mom? I asked with a smile. They were giving out prizes from the base lottery today, and guess what? Our family won an electric fan. The grand prize. It's the only one in the whole housing complex. Mom was so excited her face was flushed. A thought struck me. Could it be the spring water? Did it not only heal the body but also improve one's luck? That's wonderful. We won't have to worry about the summer heat now, I said, sharing her joy. Susan held my hand, looking more and more pleased. And that's not all. When I went to the market today, the lady selling vegetables insisted on giving me 2 extra cucumbers. On the way back, I found $10. I'm telling you, ever since you married into this family, good things have been happening one after another. I laughed. Mom, that just means you have good luck. No, it's all because of you. Mom declared. You're the treasure of our family. Just then, Grant came home. He walked in to see Mom and me laughing together, and the hard lines of his face softened. "What's all the excitement about?" "Grant, you're back." Mom pointed to the fan in the corner like she was showing off a trophy. "Look at the good fortune Leah brought our family." Grant looked at the brand new fan, then at me, his eyes full of amusement. Since I had arrived, this home had truly changed. Before, the house was always cold and quiet. His mother was constantly worried about him, her face etched with gloom. He himself had been withdrawn and silent, burying all his troubles deep inside. But now, the house was always filled with the aroma of food and the sound of laughter. His mother was smiling again, and he himself felt better each day, with more energy for training than ever before. And all of it was because of the young woman standing before him. He walked over and, right in front of his mother, naturally ruffled my hair. "You've worked hard." His voice was low and gentle, with an undercurrent of affection. My cheeks grew warm, and my heart skipped a beat. My mother-in-law watched from the side, grinning from ear to ear. A month passed in the blink of an eye. Under the influence of the spring water, Grant's body had undergone a dramatic transformation. His complexion, once pale from his old injuries, was now ruddy and healthy. He looked revitalized, and his eyes were brighter and more vibrant than before. His comrades on the base said Captain Coleman looked 10 years younger and was bursting with endless energy. One night, as we were lying in bed, he suddenly wrapped his arms around me from behind. "Leah," he murmured, burying his face in my neck, "thank you." "For what?" "Thank you for not looking down on me, and for taking such good care of this family." He paused, his voice growing even lower. "And thank you for taking such good care of me." He could clearly feel the changes in himself. That sense of strength welling up from within was something he hadn't experienced since his injury. He knew it was all my doing. I turned to face him, meeting his deep gaze. "Grant, we're husband and wife. There's no need for thanks between us." He looked at me, a storm of emotion in his eyes. "Leah, He seemed to want to say something, but in the end, he just tightened his arms, holding me closer. I could feel the change in his body, the reawakening of a masculine power and desire. I knew the time was near. My body was incredibly fertile, and his was on the verge of being completely healed by the spring water. Perhaps, very soon, we could have a child of our own. My heart filled with anticipation at the thought. Another month later, I started feeling nauseous and sleepy all the time. At first, I thought it was just heatstroke from the hot weather. But when I lost my appetite for even my favorite braised pork, a bold idea popped into my head. Could I be pregnant? The thought sent a jolt of shock and joy through me. I secretly counted the days and realized my period was more than 10 days late. My heart pounded in my chest. To be sure, I made a trip to the clinic in town. When the doctor smiled and said, "Congratulations, you're 6 weeks pregnant," I was so overwhelmed with emotion I almost cried. I was pregnant. I was carrying Grant's child. Clutching the thin lab report, I ran all the way home, wanting to share the good news with Grant immediately. But as I reached the entrance to our housing complex, I saw a scene that stopped me in my tracks. Grant was standing with a young, beautiful woman. The woman was wearing a stylish dress and flawless makeup, and she was holding on to Grant's arm intimately. And Grant wasn't pulling away. My feet froze to the spot. I recognized that woman. It was Crystal White, the ex-fiancée who had publicly humiliated Grant when she broke off their engagement. What was she doing here? I clutched the lab report in my hand, a chill shooting up my spine. I watched as Crystal looked up at Grant, her voice dripping with sweetness. "Grant, I knew you still had feelings for me. See? The moment you heard I was here, you came right out to see me." Grant frowned, subtly pulling his arm free. "Ms. White, please have some self-respect. I'm a married man." His tone was cold and distant. Crystal's face stiffened, but then she laughed. "Married? To that little country girl? Oh, Grant, don't lie to yourself. You only married her to shut people up, didn't you? You don't love her. I heard she only married you to repay some debt of gratitude. Ha! What century are we in, still pulling that damsel in distress routine? Grant, you're a hero. You shouldn't be tied down by some misguided sense of obligation. As she spoke, she reached for his hand again. I know you've just given up because of your condition. But it's okay. I've looked into it. There's cutting-edge medical technology overseas that can definitely cure you. As soon as you divorce that woman and get back together with me, I'll take you abroad for treatment. I stood a short distance away, hearing every single word. My heart sank. So that's why she was here. I watched Grant, waiting to see how he would react. Would he waver? After all, Crystal was his first love, and she was promising to cure his illness. But Grant just let out a cold laugh and took a step back, putting a clear distance between them. Ms. White, I think you're mistaken. His voice was like ice. First, I love my wife. Our marriage is not a transaction, and it's certainly not an obligation. Second, my body is perfectly fine. I don't need anyone to take me for treatment. And third, and most importantly, please stop bothering us from now on. With that, he turned to leave without a second thought. As he turned, he saw me standing there. His eyes widened in alarm, and he strode quickly toward me. Leah, you heard all that? I nodded and held out the lab report. Grant, there's something I need to tell you. Grant took the thin piece of paper, his expression shifting from confusion to shock, then to pure, unadulterated joy. His hand began to tremble as he stared at the words 6 weeks pregnant, as if trying to burn them into his memory. This. He looked up, his voice hoarse with emotion. Leah, is this real? Are we having a baby? I looked at his reddening eyes and nodded with a smile. Yes, it's real. You're going to be a dad. I'm going to be a dad. He repeated, a goofy grin spreading across his face. Haha. I, Grant Coleman, am going to be a dad. Suddenly, he swept me up into his arms and spun me around in circles. Leah. Did you hear that? I'm going to be a dad. Hey. Put me down. I laughed, feeling dizzy and worried he might hurt the baby. He carefully set me down, but his hands remained firmly on my waist as if he were afraid I'd disappear if he let go. His gaze fell on my still flat stomach, which he stared at as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. This is amazing. Just amazing. He stammered, overwhelmed with joy. A short distance away, Crystal White had seen everything. Her face soured as if she'd swallowed a fly, her expression twisting from disbelief to jealous rage. Impossible. She shrieked, rushing toward us. That's absolutely impossible. Grant, don't let this woman fool you. That baby can't be yours. You can't have children. Grant whipped his head around, his gaze as sharp as a knife. Crystal, watch your mouth. You slander my wife again, and don't blame me for what happens next. The raw, military menace radiating from him made her stumble back a step. I'm not slandering her. She insisted. Everyone on this base knows you were injured and can't have kids. How could some country girl get pregnant the moment she married you? She must have been cheating. At her words, the neighbors who had gathered to watch began to whisper among themselves. She's right, Captain Coleman's condition. The timing of this baby is a little too convenient, isn't it? You never know. You can't judge a book by its cover. Brenda Jones, seeing her chance, pounced like she'd found the ultimate piece of gossip. I knew it. I said from the beginning that Leah was trouble. She couldn't stand the loneliness and found herself a man on the side. Captain, she's made a fool of you. In an instant, I was drowning in a sea of doubt and malice. I was shaking with anger and about to retort when Grant pulled me behind him. His tall frame stood like a mountain, shielding me from the storm. He scanned the crowd, his voice low but firm. I trust my wife. And I know my own body. From this day forward, if I hear anyone else spreading rumors or slandering my wife, you will have to answer to me. His gaze landed on Brenda and Crystal, filled with a final warning. As for whether there's anything wrong with my body, the annual physicals for the entire complex are in 1 month. Everyone will know the truth then. The hospital's report will clear my wife's name. Without another word, he gently guided me away and back to our apartment. Back home, with the door closed, the fierce intensity vanished from Grant. He nervously helped me sit down, getting me water and a pillow, completely flustered. Leah, don't be angry, don't get worked up. It's bad for the baby. They're all talking nonsense, don't take it to heart. Seeing how anxious he was, I couldn't help but smile. I'm not angry. Really? Really? I took his hand and placed it on my stomach. The baby is fine. He knows his daddy is protecting us. Grant's warm palm rested on my belly, and he didn't dare move. He could feel the new life beneath his hand, and the tenderness in his eyes was overflowing. Leah, I'm sorry, he said suddenly. Why are you sorry? If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have had to endure that today, he said, his face full of self-reproach. It's my fault. I didn't handle things with Crystal properly in the past, which gave her the chance to cause a scene today. I shook my head. It's not your fault. People like that will always show up. But, Grant, do you really believe me? What if the doctor's original diagnosis was right? Even though I knew it was impossible, I wanted to hear him say it himself. He looked up, his gaze firm and unwavering. I believe you, he said. From the day you married me, I've believed in you. Besides, I can feel it in my own body. Leah, it was you. You're the one who made me a whole man again. He didn't ask what I had done, but he knew deep down that the miraculous recovery of his body was connected to me. That unconditional trust filled my heart with warmth. Good, I said. Then we'll wait 1 month and let the facts shut them up for good. The next month, I became the family's most prized possession. My mother-in-law cooked for me 3 times a day, and Grant treated me like a fragile porcelain doll, following me everywhere. He'd even wait outside the bathroom door for me. But the gossip in the housing complex never stopped. Brenda and Crystal worked in tandem, painting me as some kind of shameless harlot. Crystal, emboldened by the fact that her father was a deputy director in the base's logistics department, came to the complex every few days, loudly implying that the baby in my belly wasn't Grant's. Many people were just waiting for the drama to unfold, eager to see how our family would handle the humiliation on the day of the physicals. I ignored them all and focused on my pregnancy. My belly grew bigger by the day, much more noticeably than a typical pregnancy. Every time Grant touched my stomach, he would grin like a fool. Leah, do you think it's a boy or a girl? Which do you want? Both, he said without hesitation. As long as it's our child, I'll love it. Finally, the day of the base-wide physicals arrived. Everyone from the housing complex was there. Even Crystal had managed to get in under the pretext of visiting a friend. All eyes were on me. Brenda stood nearby with a gloating expression, just waiting for me to be exposed. Keep up the act. Let's see how you'll explain this after the ultrasound. I couldn't be bothered with her. With Grant and my mother-in-law supporting me, I walked into the ultrasound room. In the ultrasound room, an experienced old military doctor was performing the scan. As the probe slid across my belly, the doctor's expression changed from calm to surprised, then to outright shock. He checked the screen several times, adjusted his reading glasses, and finally looked up in disbelief. This is... Outside, Grant and my mother-in-law waited anxiously, their hearts in their throats. Doctor, how is it? My wife. She's not pregnant, is she? Grant's voice trembled. The old doctor took off his glasses, stood up excitedly, and shouted to those outside, who said she's not pregnant. She's more than pregnant. You lucky dog, you. What do you mean? Grant was utterly confused. What do I mean? The doctor roared with laughter. Come in and see for yourself. Your wife's got 3 in there. Triplets. Every single one of them. Triplets? Grant and his mother froze on the spot. The crowd eavesdropping outside erupted. What? Triplets? Did I hear that right? Oh my God. How is that possible? Brenda's face went white. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. She muttered. Crystal looked as if she'd been struck by lightning, completely stunned. Grant was the first to react. He bolted into the ultrasound room, and when he saw the 3 tiny gestational sacs on the screen, his eyes immediately turned red. He spun around and pulled me into a fierce hug, his voice choked with emotion. Leah. We have 3 babies. 3. Tears streamed down my face as I laughed and patted his back. Yes, 3. I guess you can finally relax now, right? The news of triplets hit the housing complex like a bombshell. The base hospital immediately took the matter very seriously. They pulled Grant's medical records from years ago, assembled a panel of experts for a consultation, and came to a conclusion that shocked everyone. Misdiagnosis. The original attending physician, due to inexperience, had mistaken Grant's temporary neurological dysfunction, caused by blast wave shock, for permanent damage. In other words, Grant had never been sterile. He had just needed time to recover. And my arrival, along with my attentive care and nutritional therapy, had significantly accelerated his recovery process. Once that conclusion was announced, all the rumors vanished into thin air. The people who had been making snide remarks now lowered their heads in shame, unable to meet our eyes. Crystal's face was metaphorically slapped raw. Unwilling to accept it, she tried to get her father to intervene, but he just gave her a harsh lecture and grounded her. I heard that to make up for the misunderstanding, her father personally approved a promotion for Grant. But the one who ended up in the worst position was Brenda. She had been the loudest spreader of rumors, and now she had the most egg on her face. Her husband, SGT Jones, was called in for a talking to by his superiors for failing to control his wife, whose gossip was undermining unit morale. His promotion for the year was reportedly off the table. When he got home, he had a massive fight with her that the entire floor could hear. After that, Brenda deflated. She started taking detours to avoid me and never dared to say another word. And I became a legend in the housing complex. Everyone called me a lucky charm, not only good for my husband but fertile as well. My mother-in-law treated me like a queen, cooking me all sorts of delicious food and worrying I might trip when I walked. Grant took a long leave of absence to stay home with me every day. He would wash my feet, give me massages, and at night, he'd lie with his head on my belly, telling stories to our babies. This once cold and silent man was now as gentle as a spring stream. Lying in bed, enjoying his care, watching his clumsy but earnest efforts, I felt like this life was all worth it. The days flew by, and my belly grew like a balloon. Carrying triplets was far more difficult than a normal pregnancy. In the last trimester, even walking became a chore, and I spent many sleepless nights in discomfort. Grant saw it all and felt my pain in his heart. He stayed by my side almost constantly, tensing up at the slightest frown from me. One day, I had finally managed to fall asleep, only to be woken by a loud argument. It was Brenda's voice, sharp and shrill. What do you mean I can't come in? I live in this complex too. You can't take away my right to come and go just because of something Leah said. Brenda, keep your voice down. Leah is resting. That was my mother-in-law. Resting? Who does she think she is, the queen? So she's pregnant with 3, big deal. I think she's targeting me on purpose. Using her big belly to boss everyone around. I frowned, trying to push myself up. Grant held me down. Don't move. I'll handle this. He walked out, and I heard his ice-cold voice. Brenda, it seems you didn't learn your lesson last time. Grant, don't you try to scare me. Get out. Grant said only 2 words. But those words carried the weight of an undeniable command and a thick, menacing aura. The hallway fell silent. A moment later, Grant came back in, his face calm again. It's nothing. Go back to sleep. I took his hand. Why was she making a scene again? Grant hesitated for a moment. The MPs gave her an eviction notice. Her family has to be out of the housing complex by the end of the month. I was taken aback. Did you do that? He shook his head. Not me. It was a decision from high up. Her husband's performance has been poor, and her behavior has had a negative impact on the community. They no longer meet the conditions for living in base housing. I sighed. In the end, she brought it all on herself. If she hadn't been so jealous, so loose-lipped, and had just lived her own life, she wouldn't have ended up like this. I thought that after such a huge setback, Brenda would finally give up. But I had underestimated the madness of a woman consumed by jealousy. A few days later, one afternoon, my mother-in-law was out grocery shopping, and Grant was in his study working on some files. Feeling a bit stuffy, I decided to go downstairs for a short walk. My belly was so big that going down the stairs was difficult. I had to hold the railing, taking it one slow step at a time. Just as I reached the landing between the first and second floors, a dark figure shot out from behind me and shoved me hard in the back. Go to hell, Leah. It was Brenda. She had been hiding in the stairwell the whole time. I cried out as my body lost its balance and pitched forward. I instinctively wrapped my arms around my belly and closed my eyes in despair. It's over. My babies. At that critical moment, a pair of strong arms shot out from the side and caught me securely. I fell into a familiar, solid embrace. Leah. It was Grant. I opened my eyes, still in shock, and saw his face etched with terror and towering rage. Brenda was dangling in mid-air, his other hand clamped around her throat, holding her up like a chicken. You. Brenda's face was turning purple, and she couldn't get a word out. You're looking to die. Grant's eyes were terrifyingly red. It was the same look he'd have on the battlefield facing a mortal enemy. I had no doubt that if I didn't say something, he would actually strangle her on the spot. Grant, don't. I grabbed his arm urgently. I'm okay, the babies are okay. Don't dirty your hands for someone like her. My words brought him back to his senses. He violently threw Brenda to the ground, then pulled out his radio and contacted the military police directly. This is Captain Coleman. We have a situation at Building A. The resident of 302, Brenda Jones, has attempted to murder a military spouse. The evidence is clear. Send a team over immediately. His voice was completely devoid of warmth. Sprawled on the floor, Brenda heard the words attempted murder and was so terrified she wet her pants. Only then did she realize just how much trouble she was in. Brenda's fate was sealed. Intentionally harming a pregnant military spouse was an extremely serious crime in the armed forces. She was taken away by the MPs and interrogated through the night. The verdict came the next day. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Her husband, SGT. Jones, was dishonorably discharged and sent back to his hometown for failing to control his family. Just like that, their entire family vanished from the housing complex. The incident served as a stark warning to everyone. They finally understood that Leah was Grant's absolute breaking point, a line that could not be crossed. From then on, no one dared to gossip about me ever again. My pregnancy finally became peaceful. A few months later, I was admitted to the main base hospital ahead of schedule. After more than 10 hours of labor, I successfully gave birth to 3 healthy babies. 2 boys and a girl, a perfect set, and then some. When the nurse brought the 3 tiny, wrinkled babies to Grant, this tough-as-nails soldier, who wouldn't even flinch at bleeding on the battlefield, cried like a child. He held one, then looked at another, completely flustered but with a smile of pure happiness on his face. My mother-in-law was overjoyed, holding her grandchildren and muttering, "The ancestors of the Coleman family are watching over us." We became the most envied family in the entire housing complex, and perhaps the entire military district. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, our 3 little ones were 5 years old. Our eldest, Aaron, was as calm and serious as a little adult, taking after Grant the most. Our middle child, Nicholas, was lively and mischievous, the troublemaker of the family. Our little daughter, Joy, looked the most like me and was a total sweetheart. With no worries at home, Grant became even more dedicated to his career. Over the years, he earned numerous commendations, and his rank climbed steadily. He became the youngest division commander on the base. My mother-in-law was in great health, helping me with the kids and her garden, living a relaxed and happy life. As for me, besides taking care of the children in our home, I used the resources from my pocket dimension to start a small business. The fruits and vegetables I grew with the spring water were of exceptional quality and quickly found a market. The business grew and grew. I was no longer just the little bride who married out of gratitude. I had my own career and had become a boss lady in my own right. Today was the base's award ceremony. Grant, as an outstanding officer, was scheduled to give a speech. I sat in the front row with our 3 children. Watching the man on stage, so handsome and heroic in his crisp uniform, my heart swelled with pride and love. He stood in the spotlight, speaking eloquently. At the end of his speech, his gaze traveled across the crowd and landed gently on me. Today, the person I want to thank the most is my wife, Leah. It was she who, during the darkest time of my life, gave me light and hope. It was she who gave me a warm home and 3 beautiful children. It was she who made me a more complete and better man. Honey, thank you. I love you. The audience erupted in thunderous applause. Our 3 little ones clapped their hands excitedly. "Mommy, Daddy's telling you he loves you." Mommy's blushing. I smiled, my eyes growing misty. I looked at him on the stage and mouthed the words back to him. "Grant, I love you, too." From an initial act of repayment to a deep and abiding love, we had, through our own effort and persistence, turned a terrible hand into a royal flush. Sunlight streamed through the window, bathing us in its warm, bright glow. I knew that our future would be just like this sunlight, brilliant and beautiful.